If you like this video, make sure to visit our Vimeo page and follow us to get the latest update.
Let's start. Okay, before I start with actual introduction to SAP BW for HANA or BW, I would like to take a step back and give you a complete picture on SAP itself. I'm not sure how familiar you are with SAP. Have you guys watched any videos or um, did a bit of study on SAP? What is exactly SAP? What is ERP system? How it works? Do you have any idea about it? So what I'm going to do is give you a complete picture of actual core SAP. I'm not talking about BW or BW on HANA. So let's park it aside, our discussion on BW and BW HANA. I will tell you about SAP, why I'm telling you. I will tell you what's the reason for walking you through about history of SAP and complete background about SAP. Okay. Uh, as you might be aware, SAP is a market leader in the ERP industry with regards to ERP software. Okay, basically when SAP was introduced into the market or SAP launched their software, their idea was to promote it as a accounting software. Okay, they wanted to have something to manage the finances, and then eventually they expanded their horizon and uh, you know introduce lots of additional functionalities to the application which they launched during early 1970s. Okay, so what is SAP? SAP stands for Systems, Applications and Products in Data Processing. It's a acronym is this, and it's basically the name of the company as well. It's a German-based company, so headquarters is in Waldorf, and somewhere in 1972 they started this company. This company was started by uh, you know 5 ex-IBM employees. Okay, they started with very small and then they grew at a very fast pace, and now they are the biggest vendor with regards to ERP software in the market. So there was no concept of BW when they launched this software. Okay, what was SAP whole purpose was to, as I said, initially they started with finance, but then they expanded to complete ERP. Now let's understand, take a step back and understand what do you mean by ERP? ERP stands for Enterprise Resource Planning. Okay. E- So basically it says that it's an application which can allow any big enterprise to manage all their resources and then plan accordingly to ensure that the optimal utilization of the resources is done. Okay, so this particular software, SAP software, is I would say is having more than 65% of the market share in the ERP segment, and their product, the latest product which is popular these days in current scenario is S4 HANA. It's an ERP software of SAP. S/4 HANA. Okay, so simple HANA version 4. Okay, now prior to that, the other previous popular versions were ECC and SAP R3. So these are different names of the same ERP application of SAP. What does ERP application do? Is ERP application allow you, I think someone, sorry, I believe one has to go on mute if you're not talking because there's a lot of background noise. And obviously, if you want to ask any question, just feel free to unmute and ask me. But if there is someone who is talking in the background, then it will be disturbance to others as well. Thank you very much. Okay, so what does SAP ERP does? SAP ERP is application which performs suite of activities, like it's an application to manage the various business aspects. Okay, for instance, in an organization you have lots of departments. You have sales department, you have procurement department, you have finance, you have HR, you have logistics, and so on. So for each of those departments, the business operations are different. Their business activities are different. So the software should be capable to address all those business activities pertaining to those different departments of an organization. Usually what used to happen prior to that, or till recent years, was for each of the department, if the organization is big, they used to follow or adopt different softwares. Even still today, I have seen that lots of customers whom I have worked with, like multinational companies, have got more than 400, 300, 200 different applications. Okay. And managing those many applications is a nightmare for the IT team, to the CIO of that organization. It's a massive task to handle those many applications. But still, in spite of SAP, in spite of you know uh, big applications like SAP, they still go for lots of small applications. Okay, so the way the organizations try to handle their task is to simplify things by minimizing the number of applications they use. And SAP allows the organization to handle end-to-end operations of all the different various departments, or you know functional areas of the business, by using one single application. So the beauty of this particular SAP R3 application, or ECC, or S4 HANA, or SAP ERP application is that it allows you to manage the business operations of the entire organization using one single software. Having said that, within one single software, there are hundreds and thousands of features which are available. Just imagine like using MS Office. Within MS Office, we have hundreds of features, and still we might not be fully familiar with all the features or options of the MS Office tool. Now, imagine the activities which are being performed by a big multinational company. You would have hundreds of features in each of those modules. Like within sales, SD stands for sales and distribution, MM stands for material management, procurement, logistics, finance, HCM, human capital management, which is HR. Okay, CRM, customer relationship management. For all those different business or functional areas, you have hundreds of options within each of them, and SAP gives you an integrated view of the entire business using one single software. That is your SAP ERP software. It is tightly integrated. You do a posting in finance, that posting is also sometimes reflected in procurement. It is also sometimes reflected in sales. Okay, so if someone is making payment to a vendor, then it is the entry is updated in finance, as well as payments is through procurement. So the procurement section of the software is also updated. So what I'm trying to say is there is referencing as well. The data is linked. So you don't have to duplicate the entries. It is once you make an entry in one area, wherever is the reference, it will automatically update the values in the reference tables, which means the data is consistent. The data is, you will not have any inconsistencies in the data, because the data you are not maintaining manually. You are not trying to go and update the same value at two different places or three different places in the software. Once you do it at one place, wherever the reflection of that entry is needed in other areas of the software, it will automatically reflect there. So you have the referential integrity in database terminology. Okay, the data is uh, the data is automatically maintained, in the sense automatically, in the sense you do posting at one place, then wherever the references are there, at those reference points, the data is automatically maintained. Okay, so that is the beauty. You avoid all the mistakes, costly mistakes of missing the entries or data inconsistencies by using this software, as that software is completely integrated. Now, this is S4 HANA. They have changed the naming convention of the software, what do you say, functional modules or functional areas. In SAP terminology, as I said, in a business terminology, we had different departments. To manage the different departments, we had subsection of the software. So the complete big software is SAP. Within SAP, you have subsection of the software, which is sales and distribution is one section. Procurement is another section. HCM is another section. So these sections of the software in SAP terminology were called as functional areas, or is still called as functional areas or functional modules. So sometimes you may hear that, okay, from which functional modules have you extracted the data or have you built the reports? So the interviewer is asking you, his intention is to understand in which business process you have worked in the past. Have you worked in building reports in sales and distribution, or finance, or HR, or some other area of SAP like plant maintenance, production planning, and so on? So these are called as functional areas or functional modules. Now, if we see, SAP is divided primarily into three major functional areas: SD, MM, and logistics, finance, logistics, and HR. Okay, these are the three basic primary areas of the software. From that three major areas, you have again sub areas of the software. Those sub areas could be like, okay, within logistics, we have SD, we have MM, we have procurement, we have PP, PM. So these are the sub areas within logistics. Within finance, you have accounts receivable, accounts payable, we have controlling, product costing, and so on. So these are the sub areas within the finance domain. So I'm trying to make you familiarize with various terminologies which is used associated with the SAP ERP software. Okay, first of all, I want to highlight the different versions of SAP software. Then I will then walk you through about the different sub areas. Okay, sub areas of SAP software. Okay, I think in the subsequent slides we do have in depth, so we will cover that. That's not an issue. Okay, uh, so are you guys able to follow me? Is there a gap in my communication, or is it clear what I'm trying to say, my message? Just anyone can say.
Actually, I'm following what you're saying.
Awesome, fantastic. So what SAP has done is rename the functional areas or functional modules which were called as SDMM, logistics, so on, with the introduction of S4 HANA. What it has done is it has renamed to core finance, optimize order to cash. So human resource foundation, procure to pay is procurement. Okay. Plan to product is, I think, um, planning, and accelerated plan to product is uh, planning, and then enhanced request to service. So these are the newer terminologies which you would see when you extract data from S4 HANA. Okay. So now before I move further, what I will do is I will just to keep it simple and make it easy. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add one more slide and explain you what exactly So SAP, SAP introduced its software, we'll go through the history of the software as well, but the popular ERP software was SAP R3. It's an ERP software. Then the R3 had various versions. There is a slide in the subsequent slide which will talk about all these things. Then it is also called as ECC, the later version of R3. After I think so, it had lots of versions. I think 4.6C or E. I can't remember which one was it. But after that, uh, we have 4.7. I think. Sorry, after 4.7, some version 4.7X. I don't remember which one. It changed its ERP naming to ECC. ECC stands for Enterprise Core Component. Okay, why I'm talking about all these things is because in BW, what we do is we have to sometime extract data from various systems. We sometimes extract data from older older versions of the softwares as well. So sometimes our few of the clients might still be on ECC. You might need to extract data from SAP ECC as well. Now the latest version, which is on a HANA database, is S4 HANA. Okay, this is the latest ERP software. Okay, we'll talk about all these things. So these are the three primary naming conventions which SAP adopted with regards to SAP ERP software. So if you see about SAP ERP software types, I won't say software types, um, software versions. Okay, so the latest version in ERP space is S4 HANA. Okay, small visible. Is it clear now?
Yeah.
Now within SAP ERP, within SAP ERP, we have subsections of the software. Actually, these sections are divided into three categories: finance, logistics, HR, human resource. Okay, so within finance, it has got again sub modules AR. Okay, we starts with FI, AP. So FI in the sense
Is it FI?
FIGL,
Is it?
finance
Okay.
GL, general ledger. Okay,
Mm.
general ledger, accounts payable, and accounts receivable. So these are the key sub areas, and then controlling. So these are the you know sub areas. What are these called as? These sub areas in SAP terminology, these are also called as functional areas. So like FI, SD. In logistics we have sales and distribution SD, production planning, plant maintenance, etc. So all these things, so these are called as functional areas or terminology wise, we call them as functional areas or uh, functional modules. Okay. So example, someone might ask, what is the example of functional modules? SD. SD stands for sales and distribution. MM. Okay. Then we have PM, plant maintenance, and so on. Now, these are called as functional areas or functional modules. Within SAP software, there are different skill sets of people required, because this software is so vast, so vast. One person is not sufficient to do all the tasks within the software. He will not be able to, manage independently. It is impossible. There is no way. Even 2 3 people is also impossible to manage such a big software, because this is a very big software. It is not like MS Office or something which is managed by one individual person. Because typically when SAP is used by any client, it is used by big multinational companies. So within SAP software, to manage it, there are three different types of skill sets required. I'm not saying three different people, but typically three different types of skill sets. Okay. What are the skill sets which are required to manage these such a vast software like SAP? Okay. What are the different skill sets required? So as I said, these are the functional areas. So someone with the functional knowledge, so they understand the business knowledge. Someone who has prior background working in that particular domain, so they have the domain knowledge. Someone from accounting background, like an accountant or chartered accountant, or someone like you know from the finance domain, they can work in the finance module. They will have the background domain knowledge, and they will also have SAP software knowledge as well. So these are called as functional consultants. Those in SAP world, I'm trying to show you what are the different names of people with different skills called as. Okay, so someone who has got functional knowledge with the domain skills. So they will functional consultants are those who have got the business domain knowledge. They interact with the uh, business people of the client, and then study the software, their existing software, a legacy system software, and then map it to the to be process. So from as is to be mapping, they do it. So these are called as functional consultants who do these jobs. They have the domain knowledge, and then they have SAP functional module skills, functional module knowledge as well. So they understand finance, they also understand SAP FI tool as well. They understand HR, they also understand the SAP HR options which are available in HR. So those people who have got these skills are called as functional consultants. Now we have got another type of skills in the technical side. Okay, technical consultants. So within technical, again, I would say there are uh, two subsections. One is someone okay, within technical, one is someone who has got the skill set to manage the software itself, like a software administrator. Do you know like if you are using in your wherever workplace, there would be an IT team. IT admin would have skills to manage the network settings. He would have skills to manage the Wi-Fi settings. He will have skills to manage the user authorizations for enterprise port for enterprise access. Okay. Likewise, to someone who manages the SAP software is called as a basis administrator. So the job of the basis administrator is to install SAP on a machine, on a data data center machine or on a server, and also sometimes he manages the along with the software, managing the software patches and software related tasks. He will sometimes manage security as well. Otherwise, in some places basis is a different team and SAP security is a different team. So SAP security is another team, I would say, who will access user authorizations, roles, and manage the user privileges. So this come under technical consultants. And then most important again, from the technical perspective, is someone who has got ABAP skills. So they are called as ABAPer. ABAPer is someone who has got ABAP programming skills. So SAP has got its own programming language. That programming language of SAP, ABAP. Okay, I don't want to confuse. I just write it in the bracket. Advanced. Okay. Do you know when you use MS Office, you have option to customize MS Office. You can use VB script to add new options or new icons or new features to MS Office. Are you familiar? So SAP Microsoft allow you to edit the Microsoft Office if someone is familiar with writing VB script. Someone wants to write their own macros. They use the VB script to write the macros in MS Office. Likewise, SAP allows user to customize the software. Okay. What I'm trying to say here is SAP is a packaged application. Even though it's a packaged application, you can customize and as per tailor need. You can customize it as per the customer requirement. Am I making sense? Is it clear or is there a gap?
No, it's clear.
Okay, awesome. Fantastic. Okay. Let's move on. So we are just, I'm making you familiar just um, for you to be aware that being a BW consultant, you will interact with all those different types of people in the organization. Now, you may have a team of SAP folks within your organization, wherever you work in future, maybe 20 people, 30 people, 40 people. Sometimes you might need to interact with these many people to understand their business requirement, to understand what type of report they need, to understand if you are building a cross-functional report, how the report should look like. And then to request access, you will go to basis folks. To write some code, you will need help of ABAPers. So these are technical people who knows the programming, and they can do the coding to customize the software as per the business requirement. Are you guys, any one of you is from programming background? Like, do you know any programming language like R, Python, C, C++, Java, JavaScript, anything?
No.
SQL? No. Okay, fine. That is fine. So, but probably you understand what is programming language, right? So these are the different languages which are there. We can use in typically in the market these days. But apart from that, SAP has got its own proprietary language. It is called as ABAP. So using that ABAP language, you can customize the software with additional new features which are not available with the pre-delivered software. Okay. And who does that? We need someone with those programming skills. These folks in the team are called as ABAPers. So sometimes we might need help of ABAPer to customize something which is not standard. Okay. So being the BW consultant, we interact with all these different domains. So we are talking about people with SAP R3 skills. Along with that, we have other additional skill sets like BW and BPC skills resources who have got the knowledge of BW, who can bring the data from various sources, build the data models, and create reports on top of it. And in order to do this, we as a BW consultant has to liaise with these many different uh, resources in the team. Okay, let's move on. In today's this is again jumping to a different area. I don't want to invest too much. So different trends we have in today's world with regards to BI data warehousing. I want to park it aside. I will come back to data warehouse definition later. Okay, now let's move on to ERP. As I was saying, what is ERP? ERP enables the integration of business process and systems to achieve enterprise-wide operational efficiency. It improves the performance of a business by consolidating the operations of entire multi-site enterprise into one database, one application, and one user interface. If you can recall what I said a few minutes ago, I mentioned the same thing, that ERP software will allow you to consolidate the entire business processes by using a single application. You don't have to have data in different databases. You don't have to have data in various applications. You can use single application to manage almost all your entire business operations. Major reason for adapting ERP, it can integrate financial information, integrate customer order information. It will standardize the processes, and then the processes speed would increase. It will reduce the inventory of managing the multiple applications, and it will standardize the HR information. So these are the key benefits of using the ERP software. Typically, okay, so this is very clumsy. So data is scattered across various places. You manage it. Okay. Key benefits: integrate the data. You will have single source of truth because the entire data is managed in one application. It will eliminate duplication of data, increase productivity. Okay, reduce operating cost. These are the key benefits of using the ERP software. Again, a typical business, how the business process for an organization would look like. An organization would have its own employees, assets, inventory. It might have its own customers, vendors, banks. So a typical, a very basic minimal, set of various aspects associated with any business is that any business would have its own employees, its own assets, inventory. The business might have its own vendors and customers, and they might do banking, so they might have its own bank accounts and so on. So what this ERP software does is it can manage all those activities associated with the business. Let's move on to the uh, same thing with regards to departments. Assume that there are different departments and each department has got various activities. HR department, okay, sales department, receivables, manufacturing, and so on. We have seen that this software can manage all the departments. So these are the examples of few functional modules in SAP. Now let's move on to the brief history about ERP software. SAP started in 72 They launched their first version of software called as R1 in 1973. But when they launched R2 in 1979, SAP actually picked up its name. R2 was a mainframe based application. So SAP required a mainframe system to run SAP software. That was the second generation of software. It was, R2. R stands for real time. So whatever you update, it reflects immediately in real time on the software. So first version was standalone. R2 was a mainframe based client server architecture. Okay. Then R3 was the most popular version. Uh, started in 19. No, I think wrong. There is missing something. Okay. Yeah, 92. So 92 SAP launched SAP R3. Then R3 had got lots of flavors. Actual, I think 95, 96 onwards, SAP picked up its, you know, uh, customer business of ERP software, and from there it is almost number one in the market. Okay, various flavors we had. In R3, we have various releases: 4.0b, 4.5b, 4.70, 4.6c, 4.6b, and 4.70. So after 4.70, then came ECC. Still, you might find lots of customers who are still on ECC. So when we extract the data, we might use SAP ECC software to connect to our BW system to extract the data. So this was a brief history of SAP, and then if we continue it further, after ECC, we have from 2011 onwards, SAP launched its own uh, database. It is called as HANA database. So based on the HANA, SAP released its own softwares or applications. S4 HANA is ERP software on HANA database. When was it launched? Somewhere in 2015. Okay. Then we have BW for HANA as well, I think 2016 onwards. So this is now in-depth history about SAP ERP. We have seen that R1 with IBM systems, servers with DOS operating system. They had the financial accounting software. Okay. Then R2, we have mainframe based system. If you see here, we have mainframe based real-time data processing system. Then with the R3, three-tier architecture. Now you might have heard so far, what is three-tier architecture? Three-tier architecture means, I believe there might be something here in the subsequent slide. We have seen the evolution of S4 HANA as well. R1, R2, R3. Okay. Here it's a three-tier architecture. Okay. I'll park my discussion for three-tier architecture for the next couple of slides. We'll just quickly, just for information purpose, I have added lots of slides here to give you how the software evolved over a period of time. Okay. There are few limitations as well of ERP reporting. Okay, we'll talk about when we go for BW, we'll talk about what are the limitations of reporting, but we'll just move to three-tier architecture. Okay, so R3 stands for real time, 3 stands for three-tier architecture, and the three-tier architecture is you have database layer, So the entire data of the application is residing in one database. Irrespective of the size and volume of the data, only one database software is managing the entire, you know, data set of the data of the organization. What happens is within SAP software, within SAP, okay, it has got three layers. One is database layer, one is business logic layer, which is uh, application layer, and then third one is the presentation layer. Okay, so what database layer does is it will manage the data using the RDBMS norms, Relational Database Management System norms. So there are some 12 core rules which are followed for managing the database by any RDBMS software. So for instance, the example of database softwares are SQL database, Oracle is a database, okay, Oracle database. Then within Oracle, there are various flavors of Oracle database, okay, that's most popular. Then SQL is another popular database. Obviously, IBM has got its own database called as DB2, and so on. So there are lots of databases in the market. What SAP did was SAP said that okay, I give the option to client to manage their database themselves. So this software ERP didn't had any SAP ECC, didn't had any restrictions with regards to database software which can be used in conjunction with SAP ECC. So so in background, in the background, along with the ECC software, you have to have one more database software installed on your database server. Okay, so to manage the SAP application, we had three different servers. One server manages the database, that is database server. Second one is application server. Third one is presentation server. So all three together is part of SAP ECC. Okay. What is the job of database server? To manage the data. The entire data in SAP is stored in the form of tables. A table is a collection of rows and columns. So whatever data you have is actually eventually stored in the form of table within SAP software. Okay. Then from that particular table, the data is fleshed out and displayed in various formats using the application server. So the job of the application server is to you know display the data in different format using the by applying the business logic in between, and then the end user, you and me, would access the software using either the SAP GUI, graphical user interface, or these days we can access using a browser as well. You can access SAP using a browser, or uh, in the previous version we used to use the NetViewer portal. Now we are using the Fury apps. In the latest version of SAP S4 HANA, we use something called as SAP Fiori, Fiori. Okay, so using this presentation layer, you actually access the software. So the third part is used to just access the software. Application part to manage the application along with the business logic, business rules, language types, and so on. And database server is to manage the database. If you want to see more detailed description about this three-tier architecture, database layer stores data, application layer process data using application logic, communicate with both the layers, read and write from the database, whereas the presentation layer provides graphical screen, user enters data, requests data from database, stores and provides data. This is how the three-tier architecture works. Is it clear?
Yeah.
Awesome. So you will have to say, like, once we repeat it and once you start using it, you will understand the software as well eventually. And as part of our course curriculum, we will log into SAP S4 HANA and try to access some of the tables and access the data from there and try to load the data from S4 HANA into BW. So you will not only see BW system, but you will also see SAP S4 HANA system as well as part of our course. Okay.
Okay.
So I think these are the few more details about presentation server, application server, and database server. You don't have to worry about much. Now, one key point when I'm talking about database server is in S4 HANA, SAP has introduced a new restriction with regards to database usage. SAP says that in S4 HANA software of SAP, the only database software which you can use is HANA database, and HANA is SAP's product. Prior to prior to S4 HANA, user users or businesses or vendors of SAP used to have customers of SAP used to have flexibility to use any database like Oracle or Microsoft SQL Server, IBM DB2, Siebel, Sybase, etc. Okay, any of the databases uh, customers were allowed to use it. With with the introduction of S4 HANA, you can use only HANA database. Likewise, in BW as well, the course which you are going to do is BW system on a database. The database which BW system uses in BW for HANA is HANA database. HANA is SAP's own proprietary database. We will learn about what is HANA and so on in detail in our subsequent sessions. Okay, I think that is good enough for today. We'll just okay, we'll just do two or three more slides and then stop for today. Then we'll move on to actual what is data warehouse. So the way I wanted to you know have the session is to give you a brief background about the associated ERP software which we have learned so far. Then in the subsequent sessions we will learn what is a data warehouse. Then we will learn the previous version of data warehouse, which is SAP BW, briefly about the BW on non-HANA databases or prior versions of BW. And then eventually we'll move on to actual content, which is BW with HANA database. Okay, so a few more terminologies which you might need to be aware of or familiar with is you need to know what is client. Okay, client is a logical portion of SAP ERP system. So basically, when someone access the SAP system, SAP gave us a lot of flexibility to users. How I want to say is, okay, now assume that you both are working in the same, okay, you both assume that both of you are working in the uh, James and Ken both are working in the same company. You have different requirements. Okay, James is working in the finance and Ken is working in the say procurement. Now, but even though you are working in the different departments, as I said, it's an integrated software. You make change in finance, it would get reflected in procurement, and Ken is making changes in procurement, it might get reflected in finance. Now, what I'm trying to say here is what SAP does is assume that both of you have a requirement to modify same object at the same time. You can't do it. There is an object locking concept in database terminology. Okay, sometimes you are modifying something and you don't want, say James is modifying something which James doesn't want anyone else to either see it at that moment in time or modify it because you are working on that object. So what you can do is you can use in SAP different clients. A client is a logical system in SAP. Okay, what it does, what do you mean by client is is assume that I have this PowerPoint. I I am using this PowerPoint. Now, if someone wants to edit, assume that this is in a SharePoint portal and someone wants to edit this same one in SharePoint, it is allowed. Assume that it was in network drive. Someone wants to edit it at the same time while I am using it, it is not possible. Whereas if you have another version of the PowerPoint by opening a new presentation, you can work it. Now, what is happening is in PowerPoint, you have only one application, one software installed, but simultaneously you can open two instances of the PowerPoint and work on two different things simultaneously. If you want, you can open another instance of PowerPoint and you can work on something else here. Here you can work on, say, uh, BW, and say in this one you are working on, say, not HANA. There we are working on ECC. Say you are working on SQL here, something like that. So assume that one software, one application, you can open multiple instances. Just try to correlate that. In SAP also, you can have multiple instances. Each instance is nothing but a client. How many instances you can have? From 000 to 999, almost 1000 instances of the application can be created. Okay. In real time, nobody does that. It is too tedious to have that many instances. Imagine you open, like sometimes I have a very bad habit of having, like, simultaneously opening like 20 different tabs. Imagine you open 1000 tabs. You can, but your system will slow down. It would be very difficult to manage the software, very difficult to navigate between one tab to another tab if we have that many tabs open. Likewise, just for the sake of scalability, SAP has given you option to have 1000 different instances of the application, and you can work it, uh, you know, independently in different clients. Are you getting my point?
Yeah. So yeah,
Now,
I
having
mean,
said, so
go ahead.
like imagine this is one PPT, a PowerPoint, but you can open another instance and work something. Likewise, imagine that there was client, say 100 for SQL, and say client 200 for BW, and say client 300 for something else. We open three different instances. Likewise, you can open 1000 different instances of the same application and work, you know,
Mhm.
without any dependency on the other client. So you work on the one object which will not be disturbed by another one. Okay,
Yep.
I'm just deleting it. Okay, now likewise, SAP also allows you to open multiple instances up to 1000 clients. So a client is a logical entity of a SAP system. Now there is a different aspect to SAP software. The different aspect here is sometimes some of the activities which you perform in the software, because it has got one common database, are, shared activities, which means that you make change in one place, it will be reflected across all the clients. So that activity is called as client independent activity, which means that irrespective of the client in which you are working, the change which you make will be reflected across the system. Okay, and sometimes, majority of the times, when you make changes on the SAP software using a particular client, those changes will happen only in that particular client instance itself. Okay, now this concept is not applicable to the BW system. Multiple clients in BW, you can have only one client. You cannot have multiple different instances of the BW software. You can have only one client. Why? Because it's a consolidated database. You don't want to have data scattered across multiple systems. Whereas in SAP ECC, you have a concept of multiple clients. You will learn this when you actually see the software, when you see it. And there are a couple of clients which you cannot use it. You can use anything between 000 to 999, but there are three different clients which are reserved for basis activities or for system administration activities: client 000, client 001, client 066. So these are like reserved clients meant for basis related activities, SAP system admin related activities. Okay, you don't have to worry about all those things because, as I said, in BW space, we don't worry about clients because we have only single client. Now I think I will talk about landscape in the next session in detail, and then we'll move on to the data warehouse. Okay, I want to stop it today for today's session. Before I stop, I just want to ask, like, you guys have any questions, just feel free to ask.
Yeah, so basically, if I should just grasp what we or summarize what you just talked about, is that you did an introduction to the ERP and the SAP are free. So and then in the course of you explaining the slides about the client, the one that you just explained, did you say we shouldn't worry about it because you always stuck to only one client when it comes to SAP BW for HANA? Is that correct?
That is true, correct. But having said that, you also need to sometimes log into ECC system or S4 HANA system, where in that particular system there would be multiple clients. Your basis guy will tell you which client to use. They will give you the system details. So what they typically do is they have called as something called as data client and development client. In real time world, what they do is they split the activities into different clients. Okay, when you do the customizations, all your system customizations happen in in the in the customizing client, whereas the data is maintained in a separate client. This is the way they organize the activities.
Okay. And then going back to the SAP, so just so again to be sure, you said we have the three subsections. We have the finance, the logistics, and the HR.
Correct.
Okay. And then when you come to the SAP ER software key versions, we have the SAP R3, and then we have the ECC, and then we have S4 HANA.
These are the different flavors of SAP ERP software. So the one we had initially was SAP R3. You might have seen in one of the slide. Okay, then how the software got evolved. Okay, so if you see this particular slide, you would notice that, you know, the naming convention and the software is just to make you familiar, so that someone asks you, have you worked on R3, you can simply say that no, I haven't worked on R3 software. You can say that I've worked on ECC. If you have not, you can say that okay, I've worked only on SAP S4 HANA. Okay, so this is how the software got evolved. In 1992, SAP launched its actual ERP software, which is three-tier system, SAP R3. Now, within R3, like 1.0, 1.1, 1.2, there were various flavors. After R3 was launched, the most popular flavor where SAP picked its name was 4.0 version onwards. So in 4.0 version, whether it is 4.0B or 4.5B, was very popular. So this is not the only version of the software which was there. There were other versions as well, like 4.5C as well, 4.6A, 4.6B, 4.6C. After 4.6C, then SAP launched 4.70. After 4.70, SAP changed uh, the naming convention and introduced something called as ECC. Why it introduced ECC? Because SAP moved from thick client of GUI to NetWeaver concept. NetWeaver is like software on a portal. Okay, so that concept was introduced. It has got like my ERP or my SAP flavor to the SAP ECC software, and within SAP ECC, the 6.0 version of ECC was very popular. I mean, it's like after 4.6 there was 5.0, but with 5.0 SAP did not set R3, it said ECC. Then after 5.0 it changed to 6.0. The sequence is still the same: 1.0, 1.2, 1.3, 4.0b. After 4.7 the next version was 5.0, but with the ECC flavor, which is NetWeaver stack. Then 6.0 was more popular, and within 6.0 then SAP started releasing service packs and enhancements packs. Now we have EHP 8, I think, which was the latest in ECC. After EHP 8 enhancement pack 8, SAP launched the latest version in HANA, and then it moved to SAP S4 HANA. S4 HANA was introduced in 2015. Now within HANA we have different flavors. HANA, they release the software uh, with newer flavors or newer version once in a year these days. Okay.
Okay. All right.
So this is all about this one ERP, and uh, and then uh, and then the objective is to show you about how the system landscape is, and then we will move on to introduction to data warehouse. Okay, once we have the data warehouse introduction, we'll go for BW and then so on.
Okay.
All right.
Good. So I think we will wrap it up
This
today.
video.
Thank you for attending the session. I hope you all enjoyed it. Don't forget to visit our Vimeo page and follow for more upcoming videos.